Mingla and welcome to Myanmar Radio's Myanmar Today. I'm Michelle with a recent news and reports from around Myanmar. Pyithu got the latest reports on production realigned for film industry, cinema opening under reconsideration. Dr. Susie will give us all the details on bill on central provided funds submitted to Pyithu Hluttaw. Akajo has the details on China's Mars probe. Bomo will have the full story on health of infected cases remains on the way to recovery. All of these reports will be coming up on Myanmar Today, but for now, let's take a look at what's happening in local news. Pyithu Hluttaw, Deputy Speaker and Chairman of the Joint Coordination Committee, JCC, on Hluttaw Development, U Tuntun Hay received International IDEA Myanmar Head of Mission, Mr. Mark McDowell, and his entourage at his office of the Hluttaw building in Naypyidaw at 3 p.m. on Monday. During the meeting, they warmly discussed matters related to organizing workshops on capacity building and Hluttaw development negotiation between JCC and the IDEA Myanmar for signing an MOU, and possible training for Hluttaw processes for new MPs who will enter the Hluttaw in 2021. The meeting will also be attended by the Joint Public Accountants Committee Vice Chairman 1, U Aung Min, Secretary U Kim Aung Then, and officials from the Pyithu Hluttaw office. Ayari River water level has risen and flooded 4 villages in Pyithu Township area of Magwe region. According to the Information and Public Relations Department, 486 houses have been flooded in the 4 villages of Nanojong, 2, Ngachaojong, and Myenjansu in the township area. Nanojong Village Tracts Administrator said the villagers experience a flooding at this time every year and no need to evacuate the people yet. Ayari River water level has risen and flooded the Beijing Township area of Pinglin District in Mandalay region. Disaster Management Department has been providing cash, food, and masks to the victims who are now taking shelter at safer places in their relative houses. Information and Public Relations Departments reported the department will also provide the flood victims in Degaon Township. The first 2020 Myanmar-Korea Technology Exchange Online B2B meeting started on 27 July at SME Center, Yangon of the Directorate of Industry Supervision and Inspection, in coordination with Career SMEs and Startup Agency, KOSME, in order to keep running the business amid the coronavirus outbreak. The virtual meeting will keep running until 29 July. The 18 Myanmar companies and 3 companies from Korea participate the first day of 2020 Myanmar Korean Technology Exchange Online B2B meeting on 27 July, the KOSME stated. The Korean SMEs and Startup Agency, KOSME, is a non-profit government-funded organization established to implement the government policies and programs for the sound growth and development of Korean SMEs. With advisory programs including consulting, training, marketing, and global cooperation programs, KOSME supports SMEs to enhance their global competitiveness. According to the Yangon region government, pagodas and temples in Yangon region, which have been closed temporarily due to the outbreak of COVID-19, will be reopened for public obeisance starting 4 a.m. on 30 July 2020, in line with the orders, instructions, and regulation issued by the Ministry of Health and Sports. That's all with the local news. Now we'll move on to our first report. State Councillor Daw Aung San Suu Kyi of the Republic of the Union of Myanmar on 28 July hosted a regular video conferencing at a sections of film industry, together with the participant Dr. Min Tui, Union Minister for Ministry of Health and Sports, U Nyi Tolin, Chairman of Myanmar Motion Picture Organization, U Zoming, Chairman of Mingla Group of Cinema.
The Ministry of Information realigned film production after nearly 4 months backlogs in entertainment industry. The MOI released an announcement on 27 July 2020 that production house can reoperate their work on music video, commercial video, film and film series productions by receiving permission from Myanmar Motion Picture Organization a week in advance before shooting. State Consular Aung San Suu Kyi on July 28 hosted a regular video conferencing at a section of film industry together with the participants, Dr. Pyithu, Union Minister for the Ministry of Health and Sports, Thonglin, Chairman of Myanmar Motion Picture Organization, and Usome, Chairman of Mingala Groups of Cinema. Dr. Pyithu, Union Minister for the Ministry of Health and Sports, discussed.
COVID-19
The Ministry of Information submitted a draft COVID-19 checklist for film industry and workers. Then the officials from MOHS also went to indoor and outdoor shootings for the ground check. We checked how they really work following some healthcare measures. Then the MOI and the MOHS released a checklist handbook with healthcare guidelines for film production. After that, we decided to recommend back to work for Myanmar film industry.
According to the announcement of MOI, the production houses or the producers have to register for the shootings 1 week in advance before shooting. They have to give the information like how many people are involved, when and where did the shooting take place. They have to follow the checklist for the reference stated by the Ministry of Health and Sports. Thonglin, Chairman of Myanmar Motion Picture Organization, discussed.
There are 10 films which can't resume the production to the end. For the first, we are trying to resume this work again. The checklist and the handbook are distributed to reach in the hand of directors, producers, and shooting managers. They have to learn and digest the guidelines in the handbook, and they can set up the setting by following these guidelines.
The handbook and the checklist have already been disseminated to the respective motion picture production houses and companies to restart the film production. But there is no additional announcement for reopen of the film screening in cinemas. Usome, Chairman of Mingala Groups of Cinema, discussed.
We would like to reopen the cinemas as soon as possible while following the particular healthcare guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and Sport. We have prepared and modified the cinemas for new normal conditions, so the Ministry of Health and Sport can also check and suggest us the better guidelines. We would like to request that 50% of the seats in the cinemas have to be sold off by showtime. I suppose this number will be relevant and reasonable for the theater owners, film producers, and also the moviegoers. We will also follow social distancing rule while we are selling the ticket. We want to receive the instruction from the state councillor, the MOHs, and other experts.
State councillor discussed that.
During this period, the cinemas can modify for the preparation. The Ministry of Health and Sports is going to check the preparation of precautionary measures. We can take the example of the case of reopening the high schools. If we succeed the case of reopening the school with well disciplines, we can suppose that we can go another step of the public gathering safely. Then we can reconsider the plan to reopen the cinemas. Now the government is evaluating the impacts, especially the economic impact that comes from our restriction decisions. We will reconsider how we should move for the rest month of this year.
Since last 16 March, not only the film production but also the film screenings have been temporarily shut down in the wake of COVID-19 alert. The closure of film industry has already been for nearly 4 months, and the film industry laborers have been facing the serious crisis at present. The Myanmar film industry is going to mark its centenary, that means 100th anniversary in October 2020. I am Pyithu. This is news reporting from Myanmar Radio.
That's a report on productions reallowed for film industry, cinema opening under reconsideration. The Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry submitted the bill on Central Provident Fund to second Pyithu Hluttaw on its 6th day of 17th regular session held on Tuesday. The bill is developed to change the current pension schemes of defined benefit system into defined contribution system, in which the pension is provided through the fund. On the upcoming meetings, the Hluttaw representatives are to make further suggestions on the bill.
On the 6th day of 2nd Pyithu Hluttaw 17th regular session, the Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry submitted the bill on Central Provident Fund to the Hluttaw. This bill is aimed to change the pension scheme of the country from defined benefit system, in which the government provides all the pensions, into defined contribution system, which depends on fund. Currently, the pensions for the government's employees are provided from the nation's budget. The number of pensioners is rising year after year, and the period of their life expectancy is increasing, so that the government has to spend more budgets for pension and other awarded fees. In 2018-2019 fiscal years, there were 92,764 pensioners. For those, 1,116.084 billion jabs were consumed. These were 4% of total expenses of the fiscal year, as well as 15% of total tax of that fiscal year's. Pension burden causes the pressure on the government fiscal sustainability, as well as economic and social security of pensioners. Uma Mawin, Deputy Minister for Planning, Finance and Industry, President.
The aims of developing bill are to implement more effective central fund system to change from defined benefit system into defined contribution system to support better governance through the establishment of the central fund, to form sustainable benefits from the investment in the fund, to help macroeconomy stable, to support the government's development projects, and to make the central fund system of the public enterprises improve. By providing pension through Central Provident Fund, it will benefit in the sustainability of the pension scheme, decrease in nation's budget deficit, increase in profit depending on the rising of fund, support on the future of the employees, and assistance to reduce in poverty. The bill is comprised of 14 chapters and 70 sections, including definitions, forming of central fund organization and its responsibilities, analysis and report, punishment, and miscellaneous.
The pension department is getting help from the World Bank for technology for the analysis of current pension system in order to make changes to it. A strategy for pension reform was developed. It is to perform the parametric reform of upgrading the current scheme and systematic reform of changing the whole system at the same time. Both the old and new schemes are to be performed in parallel, so that in the future the new scheme can completely replace the old one. Concerning the bill, on behalf of the Bill Committee of Pyithu Hluttaw, its member Une Myoton also reported that
Pyithu Hluttawနိုင်ငံသားများ၏မူလအခွင့်အရေးဆိုင်ရာကော်မတီဗန်များနှင့်ငွေကြေးဆိုင်ရာဖွံ့ဖြိုးတိုးတက်ရေးကော်မတီ
For this bill on Central Provident Fund, Pyithu Hluttaw Bill Committee has already discussed with Citizens Fundamental Rights Committee, Banks and Monetary Affairs Development Committee, and Economic and Financial Development Committee of Pyithu Hluttaw, Citizens Fundamental Rights, the Democracy and Human Rights Committee of Myanmar Today, Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry, and the Office of the Attorney General. The findings and corrections are distributed to the Hluttaw representatives.
National Pension System Reform Project is considered as part of the Project Bank of Myanmar Sustainability Development Plan (MSDP), as well as it is connected with the Modernization of Public Finance Management Project. The applicable employees are the new appointed government employees and who have less than 10 years of working experience after the law on Central Provident Fund comes into effect. News reported by Dora Susan from Myanmar International Radio.
That's a report on bill on Central Provident Fund submitted to Pyithu Hluttaw. Stay with us as we bring you more reports on Myanmar Today. China launched Mars probe on 23rd July, aiming to complete orbiting, landing, and roving in one mission. The journey to Mars will take 6 to 7 months, and the probe is expected to reach the red planet around February 2021. Mars is one of the planets in the solar system that is closer to the Earth and has the most similarities to our natural environment. The red planet has always been one of the destinations in human space adventures. Akajo has more.
China launched a Mars probe on the 23rd of July, aiming to complete orbiting, landing, and roving in one mission and taking the first step in its planetary exploration of the solar system. A Long March 5 rocket, China's largest launch vehicle so far, carries a spacecraft with the mass of about 5 tons. The launch took place at the Wencheng spacecraft launch site on the coast of South China's island province Hainan. The journey to Mars will take 6 to 7 months, and the probe is expected to reach the red planet around February 2021. After it enters Mars orbit, it will spend 2 to 3 months surveying potential landing sites using a high-resolution camera to prepare for the landing in May. Masaji Niwin from China Media Group CI Myanmar Department explained more on the Tianwan-1.
တရုတ်ပြည်ရဲ့ဒီပထမဆုံးအင်္ဂါဂြိုဟ်စူးစမ်းလေ့လာရေးရင် Tianwan အမှတ် 1 ကိုဇူလိုင်လ 23 ရက်နေ့ကလွှတ်တင်ခဲ့တယ်။ ဒီလေးလာရင်ကဘာတွေလှုပ်ဆောင်မှလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒီအင်္ဂါဂြိုဟ်ရဲ့သတ်မှတ်ထားတဲ့လမ်းကြောင်းကိုဝင်ရောက်ပြီးတော့ဝိုင်းပတ်မယ်။နောက်အင်္ဂါဂြိုဟ်မြေပြင်ကိုဆင်းသက်ပြီးတော့စူးစမ်းလေ့လာမယ်။နောက်တစ်ခုကကျတော့ဒီသက်ဆိုင်ရာသိပ္ပံပညာပေါ့နော်။ကိန်းဂဏန်းတွေကိုရရှိအောင်လှုပ်ဆောင်မှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်။နောက် Mars ကိုလေ့လာရတဲ့အဓိကရွေချက်ကတော့ဒီနေဖွဲ့စည်းနဲ့ဒီစကြဝဠာစုဝေးရဲ့ဇင်းမြစ်တွေနဲ့ဆိုင်တဲ့အသိပညာတွေပို့ပြီးသိရဖို့နောက်ကမ္ဘာမြေကြီးမှာဒီဇီဝတွေဘယ်လိုတွေဖြစ်ပေါ်လာသလဲအနာဂတ်မှာဘာတွေဖြစ်လာနိုင်သလဲဒါတွေကိုအဖြေရှာဖို့ပဲဖြစ်ပါတယ်။ဒါတွေကိုအဖြေရှာတွေ့ခဲ့လို့ရှိရင်ဒီလူတွေအနေနဲ့ပေါ့နော်ဒီစကြဝဠာစုဝေးကြောင်းကိုပို့ပြီးတော့သိမြင်လာမဲ့အပြင်ကိုနောက်ဆုံးမှာဒီကမ္ဘာမြေကြီးနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့ပေါ့နော်မျိုးပြဿနာတွေကိုဖြေရှင်းနိုင်မဲ့အကျိုးကျေးဇူးတွေရလာမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်။ဒီTianwanအမှတ် 1ကဒီတရုတ်ပြည်ရဲ့အာကာသလုပ်ငန်းသမိုင်းကြားမှာတော့အရေးကြီးတိုးတက်မှုဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ဒီနိုင်ငံတကာအာကာသလုပ်ငန်းမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လည်းတခုတည်းသောအောင်မြင်မှုလို့ဆိုရမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ရှင်။
The mission will study the red planet's morphology and geological structure, soil characteristics, distribution of surface water ice, surface material composition, atmospheric ionosphere and surface climate and environment, as well as physical field and internal structure on Mars. That is said by Liu Tongqie, spokesperson of China's first Mars mission and deputy director of the Lunar Exploration and Space Program Center. The mission has attracted the active participation of institutions and organizations from home and abroad, including the European Space Agency, the French National Center for Space Studies, and Argentina's National Space Activities Commission. The curtain of Mars exploration missions has been lifted out with the launch of HOPE, the United Arab Emirates spacecraft, in Japan 3 days ago. What's next after China's Tianwan-1 is the U.S. Mars 2020 mission, which is slated for 30th of July. Mars is one of the planets in the solar system that is closest to the Earth and has the most similarities to our natural environment. The red planet has always been one of the destinations in human space adventures. This is Akajo reporting for Myanmar International Radio.
That's the report on Taiwan-1, China's Mars probe. Myanmar has currently reached 350 confirmed cases with 293 recoveries and 6 deaths. The cases in the countries are both imported cases with 54% and local cases with 46%. More than 6,110 buildings and public places, including cinemas and places of worship, have been restricted by the Ministry of Health and Sports, and almost 315,722 people have been kept in quarantine. Around the world, medical researchers are working hard to find the vaccines as the virus spread easily and the majority of the world's population is still vulnerable to the COVID-19. Have a report for more details.
Myanmar is also one of the infected countries from the COVID-19. There are currently 350 confirmed cases with 292 recoveries and 6 deaths. Cases in the country are both imported cases with 54% and local cases with 46%. The government officials, including the Union Minister of the Ministry of Health and Sports, formed the committee to combat the COVID-19 disease since the COVID-19 was identified in the country. Very few people are wearing the masks, and some wear masks under their chin to show that they follow the guidelines. More than 6,110 buildings and public places, including cinemas and places of worship, have been restricted by the Ministry of Health and Sports, and almost 315,722 people have been kept in quarantine. The pandemic has killed nearly 650,000 people worldwide, with more than 60 million people infected. The United States, Brazil, and India has placed in the top places on the charts. At this time, there are no specific vaccines or treatments for COVID-19. However, there are many ongoing clinical trials evaluating potential treatments. As soon as clinical findings become available, the WHO will continue to provide updated information. Medical researchers are working hard to find the vaccine as the virus spreads easily and the majority of the world's population is still vulnerable to the COVID-19. Dr. Situlin, the specialist from the Yangon Workers' Hospital, spoke to my radio about the current treatments in the country.
As we know, a lot of the medical researchers are working hard to find the vaccines. There are 2 ways to cure the COVID-19 with the treatments and vaccines. Treatments are the first priority to give the infected patients. In our country, we can only give the treatments to the infected patients. To combat the COVID-19 infected patients, people need to have strong immune systems. The COVID-19 is an infected disease through the respiratory system caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. Nowadays, people neglect the infections. They have to wear masks to prevent the infections from the others and to protect themselves. If the one has the kind of disease like diabetes, can infect it easily than the other normal people. When we look through the other countries, the big countries have faced a lot of infections. But in our country, it has been nearly 4 months and the infection cases are only over 300. We can say lucky to this situation. Besides, people still need to follow the guidelines as there are still a lot of returnees who are coming back from abroad.
Around the country, there are over a total of 3,250 quarantine sites. Among over 350 confirmed cases, only 20 patients accounting for 5.7% had to stay under the ICU case unit, and 5 patients accounting for 1.4% had put on ventilators, according to the data from a quick and dirty analysis of COVID-19 in Myanmar. Uwe Pyohan, Region Hluttaw representative from Insane Township, spoke to my radio about the current prevention process in their township.
As a COVID-19 township committee, they're still implementing the current prevention process. At Insane Township was the one which had found the highest number of over 40 people in Yangon region. But now those infected people are all discharged from the hospitals. The people in our township also got a lot of knowledge about the infection as they had seen the cases before. The COVID-19 Township Committee sprayed the antibacterial spray to all the schools in the townships and helped with the other community organizations in the township.
The Ministry of Health and Sports had tested over 110,526 people since late March. The total of 918 lab tests from the National Health Laboratory in Yangon, the Department of the Medical Research and the Public Health Laboratory in Mandalay, and the Public Health Laboratory in Molomyai, and number 1,000-bedded Defense Services General Hospital Yangon as on 8 p.m. on 28 July. The COVID-19 confirmed cases still remain with 350 cases, with 293 recoveries, with 6 deaths.
That's a report on half of infected cases remains on the way to recovery. And that's all we have for today's report, and it's time to check on some international news here on Myanmar Today. Chinese President Xi Jinping on Tuesday sent a congratulatory message to the official start of the assembly of the world's largest fusion device at International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, ITER. A virtual ceremony of the start of the assembly was held on Tuesday at ITER headquarters in southern France with French President Emmanuel Macron and government leaders from China, Europe, India, Japan, South Korea, Russia, and the U.S. in attendance. The ITER machine, the world's largest science project, replicates the sun's fusion power that provides light and warmth and animal life on Earth. Fusion energy is inherently safe and clean, and scientists worldwide are working hard to make the controlled fusion reaction take place in a more practical and economical way. ITER is the largest experimental device to realize that. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea imposed tougher prevention measures against COVID-19 on Tuesday, after it locked down the border towns of Kaesong to tackle what it could be its first publicly confirmed case of the coronavirus, state news agency Korean Central News Agency reported. Strict quarantine measures and the screening of districts were in progress. The measure came after DPRK leader Kim Jong-un declared an emergency on Sunday after a person was suspected to be infected with the coronavirus. An emergency event happened in Kaesong City, where a runway who went to the south 3 years ago. A person who is suspected to have been infected with the vicious virus returned on July 19 after illegally crossing the demarcation line, KCNA said. China voiced strong opposition on Tuesday after the U.S. added 11 Chinese companies to an economy blacklist, saying the U.S. is using economy and trade as a tool of the political suppression and caused severe damage to international economy and trade order. The U.S. Commerce Department added to an economy blacklist of 11 Chinese companies on July 20, accusing them of being implicated in human rights violation in Xinjiang. China Ministry of Commerce urged the U.S. side to immediately stop its wrong action and will take all necessary measures to resolutely safeguard the legitimate right and interest of China's company. China urged the U.S. to correct its mistake, revoke violent decisions, and stop interfering in China's internet affairs. And that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining me on Myanmar Today. I'm intern anchor Michelle. Have a good day. Until next time.